not only an amazing woman who I have a great deal of respect for, she's also one of my favorite people on the planet and my cousin. Hey guys. I'm really excited about today's show. Not sure if everyone has been paying attention, but the new wave of nutrition, and I say new because it's gotten so much publicity as of late, is the idea of a keto or a carnivore diet. And today on Acts of Faith, Conversations in the Pandemic, I am going to be joined by the foremost authority on carnivore, especially for the Black community. She actually started the Black community for carnivore and has been very successful with it, having lost over 80 pounds and kept it off for several years. She is definitely an inspiration to me and has really been at the front of the movement with regards to all areas of carnivore and keto with regards to diet.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? I can barely hear you. Let me see. That's
really?
My fault. I think it's on my end. But thank you so much for being here today. Really excited. Been bragging about you for years, and so finally have an opportunity.
Thank you.
Of course, finally have an opportunity to bring you to whoever is here today listening, because I'm sure everyone in my immediate world is 100% tired of hearing about my amazing cousin, who is super, super smart on every level and also lost over 80 pounds and has kept it off for several years. So thank you so much for being here. And I really want to just jump right in because I feel like we're going to have a lot of people interested in this subject and want to talk about everything with regards to questions. So just, really quickly go over what led you to a keto lifestyle and how were you able to be so successful with it?
Well, I want to say thanks again for having me on. I'm really excited. I'd love to be, have the opportunity to be on your show. Also, thank you to so many of my fans who showed up. I see you, Delisa and Fit Bliss, and so many others. That is so awesome. Please keep sending us love and questions throughout this interview. So just to get started and to really just to tell my story, I've struggled with weight for a long time, and Faith and I, having known each other many, many years, have gone through lots of different diets and stuff together. And it's funny, for a long time, we used to even if we weren't trying to, we used to sort of be synced up. So when I would lose weight, she would lose weight, and then or she'd.
And then you left me.
Yeah.
And then you left me here in fat world.
I know. And then one time you're like, wait, what happened? You were supposed to bring me along. But unfortunately, it does require a little bit of effort on both of our parts. So
sadly, it doesn't just happen.
Yeah, unfortunately. So in any event, though, I, struggled with weight and have tried lots of different diets. And towards the end of the 1990s, I guess the fourth iteration of the Atkins book came out. And so I was living in LA at the time, and, everybody was doing it. It was a new diet. So I tried it. And it actually worked pretty well for me. There were definitely the symptoms of keto flu and stuff. I'm sure, many of you who've tried it are somewhat familiar with that, and I can go over that later. But, overall, I did well with it. But I love candy and sweet things. So it was not something that I thought about, really continuing, for a long time. So, but I sort of kept my weight under control over the years by sort of limiting carbs. And, but over time, various things happened, and I was working in a job that was I had a really difficult boss and a really difficult circumstance, and I ended up gaining a lot of weight in a pretty short time period. I gained about 80 pounds. So, I kind of got to the point, I went to, my brother's wedding, and it was, it was just a turning point. There were so many things that happened that weekend that it was just like, I cannot go on like this any longer. I was, exhausted all the time, in a lot of pain. I don't know, with knee pain from going up and down the stairs. And I live in New York and in a walk up, and I take the subway. So stairs were like a daily part of my life. So it was a real big problem. And I have plantar fasciitis on the bottoms of my both feet. So I don't know if any of you have had that, but it's very painful, very uncomfortable. So, those were the kind of things that I was dealing with, and, and just generally just exhausted. So I decided this is it. I got to deal with this, and I'm just going to deal with it. So I ended up starting a keto. Well, I started low carb, which is what I had been doing on and off over the years. And, I started that. But this time I just got interested in the science around it and really trying to understand why it works and, what's going on behind it. So, I dove in, I watched like every YouTube video I could find, every scientific presentation on keto and the scientific research behind it. And I really came to understand that this is not just a diet to lose weight, that this is the optimal way to eat. So, over the years, I would listen to different people's testimony, the things that they healed, and so on. And a lot of things improved for me. I lost weight. A lot of my allergies calmed down. I really did a lot better in some ways, but there were still some nagging health conditions that, that I was struggling with. And and I had heard as I was in the keto space and listening to all of these interviews and stuff, I had heard people talking about the carnivore diet, or as it was called then, the zero carb diet. And, and the first time I heard about it, it was like, oh man, that's crazy. Everybody knows kale is so important.
Right.
But I kept hearing about it and kept hearing about the successes that people had. And I knew that I had not achieved like the optimal amount of success that I would like to have. So, so I finally decided to like go ahead and try it. And there are certain things in life that, certain things that you can, you can read the research, you can look at other people's experience, and you can have a sense of whether it's going to work for you or not. But there are some things that you just have to try. There's no way around it. You have to do the experiment, and you just have to see. So I finally decided to, dive in and really do the experiment. And I was astounded what an improvement it made for me. And so on day 2, I knew that this was it. This is how I was eating.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So what was it that happened on day 2 that made you immediately understand, like, this is what you need to be doing?
My energy levels. So I just felt amazing. And so I had so much more energy. So, and what I was doing in the very beginning was, I had found something called the beef and butter diet, or fast, where basically you just eat ground beef and butter for 3 days, and then you go back into whatever keto plan you're doing. But this is sort of a way to jumpstart weight loss.
And that was called the vegan diet?
No, the beef and butter diet.
Oh, beef and butter. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What did I miss?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so the intention was to do it for 3 days. I did it ended up doing it, I think, for like 2 weeks. But I felt great in the beginning, and I just kept going from there. So, so I just really did well. So the top things that were resolved for me, so I will say that there was definitely some continued experimentation that went on over time to really to refine the diet and make it work for me specifically. So, I personally am, have a lot of allergies. So anybody with any kind of autoimmune issues or allergies or anything is really going to thrive on the carnivore diet, because one, getting into a state where you're burning fat for energy rather than sugar, that's a ketogenic state. That's what you're aiming for when you go on keto. That in and of itself is incredibly healing, and it can help reverse a lot of the signs of metabolic disease that we see: diabetes, stroke, heart disease, and cancer. But that doesn't necessarily deal with the autoimmune issues that can be going on. So autoimmune things could be allergies, eczema, asthma, but also things like depression. Heart disease has an inflammatory aspect to it. Also, cancer has an inflammatory aspect to it. So to deal with those types of things, you really have to deal with removing. There are certain food items that just tend to inflame people and cause these kinds of reactions.
And so when you talk about certain food items, I know that dairy is one, because my son has eczema, as you know, and I spent basically his life removing and adding things from his diet. I really, really wish that someone had introduced me to the ketogenic or the carnivore diet when he was younger, because, it's funny because he really hates vegetables. He's always hated them. I've always had to sneak them into different food. And now to learn that he would be better off pretty much without them for his particular situation, that would have been so much easier than trying to find all of these really creative ways to force him to eat food that he probably didn't need or benefit from in any way.
Yeah.
So, besides dairy, what are some of the other foods that people, eat pretty much on a regular basis, not realizing that it could be having a negative effect on their health and nutrition?
Well, so dairy is a main one. That's a big one. But let me just dive in on why that is. So there is some research from this clinic in Hungary that uses a ketogenic diet to treat their patients. So they have shown that with their studies that when you consume dairy, it actually causes intestinal permeability, which is the thing that leads to allergies. So basically, the idea behind allergies is that your intestines is supposed to be, a solid wall that doesn't allow, food in the tract to go back out into your body. But when you have, when you have permeability, there's foods that are going back into your bloodstream, and your body sees that as, an invader and a problem, and that is what begins an allergy. So any food that causes those holes to happen is going to, perpetuate or exacerbate any kind of allergy. And so dairy is a main culprit that can do that for a lot of people. And that is, and a lot of times people say, oh, well, my stomach doesn't get upset, I'm not lactose intolerant. But how dairy manifests as a problem can be different for every person. So for your son, it was eczema. For me, it was asthma. So when I finally took dairy out of my diet, I stopped using my asthma inhaler, and I haven't used it since.
And how long after you took dairy out of your diet were you able to stop using the inhaler?
So I really don't know. I didn't notice like not using my inhaler. It just kind of eased off, but it was, I was about 10 days off of cheese when, some cheese presented itself to me. And, I was doing this experiment, but I wasn't like hardcore on it. So I was like, yeah, I'll have some cheese. And within an hour, I needed my inhaler. So it was very dramatic and very noticeable. And so, obviously I didn't want this to happen because, I love cheese. Who doesn't want cheese? So I decided
grilled cheese. That used to be one of our favorite things.
Yeah. So for those of you in the audience, I should tell you one time. We used to make grilled cheese quite a bit, but I kind of went crazy with the butter, and I would put like a whole stick of butter in each sandwich. And it
was so awesome. It was like deep fried grilled cheese.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So good.
So
it's so bad.
Yeah. Kind of the thing that, man, just bad stuff, bad news all around. But,
well, we didn't know. So now we know.
Yeah.
We can just miss it now.
Yeah. So, but the cheese, so I decided to try to experiment, and I did for the next, for the next like week or the next 2 weeks, I would try to go a couple of days without cheese, and then I would try it again. So, you have to give it a couple of days for the body to calm down and all of that. But we would go ahead and, so I would go ahead and try it again. And each and every time, like I needed my inhaler within a few hours. The last time I had some cheese with dinner, and then I woke up later that night, I was having a dream that I needed my inhaler, and I woke up realizing I needed my inhaler. And then it was like, I'm supposed to be an adult. My job is to keep myself alive, and I'm doing something that's like really dangerous. So that was it. That was the last time I had any cheese, and I don't intend to have it again. But, so for me, it manifests as asthma, but for other people, it might be acne. For other people, it could be IBS or, so wherever your weak point is in your body, that's probably where it's going to manifest. But so dairy is one. Another thing is, vegetables as a whole can really be difficult for people to deal with. Fruit, if anything, fruit is designed to be eaten. It is, fruit that has seeds in it is meant to sort of be eaten, as a whole by the animal, and then they kind of walk off wherever they go and they poop it out, and then that new, those seeds are able to germinate in a new place. But the way that we have done agriculture has changed fruit, so now like a Granny Smith apple has as much sugar in it as a Snickers bar. So it's not the same as like, eating fruit in the wild.
Wait, what? Wait, what? Say
Yeah.
that again?
Granny Smith apple has the same amount of sugar as a Snickers bar. Those big green apples.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. And I'm thinking apple Snickers bar. I don't know.
I know, right? I mean, so with that information, it really begs the question, like, which
Just
one?
have a Snickers. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, they're both candy, really. And remember last week when I was telling you about the cotton candy grapes?
Oh, yes. Which,
Yeah.
thank God, I've never seen anywhere. But it sounds amazing. And of course, now I can't really eat them anymore, but it really sounds like something that I would have liked to have.
Yeah. So, well, but I mean, it begs the question, like these, these things are being treated as if they are, fruit and have a halo.
Good for you. Yeah.
But they don't, and they're not even like the fruit that ever existed as we were evolving as human beings. So, cotton candy grapes was bred to taste like cotton candy and to be ultra sweet. So, the question is this candy or is this fruit? Like, what is this? Because this is no longer, remotely natural.
Right.
So, but in any event, so fruit theoretically is safer, but the amount of sugar in it nowadays really doesn't make it very safe. And then there are things that are particularly damaging, like green leafy vegetables, kale, those sorts of things. I know that they are really being listed as a health item, but many of them are just really, really difficult on your digestive system. And think about, the day that you went out and you had the big giant salad with the cashew butter dressing and, all the raw veggies on top. And, think about how your stomach felt that afternoon and that evening.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that I have really enjoyed about being your cousin is that you do immense amount of research on everything. It doesn't matter what it is. So it doesn't surprise me at all that you did all this research on keto and nutrition, because you've done the same thing with everything else. I've never had to research the best camera to buy, the best phone to get, the best anything, because if you buy it, I just buy the same thing. And so, one of the things that I've really been able to enjoy is knowing that you've done all the research that needs to be done for keto. And so instead of me having to go do that on my own, I can just ask you, what should I buy? Okay, I'm going to start keto tomorrow. And, I just wake up and decide, oh, I'm going to do keto tomorrow and I'm going to lose 100,000 pounds. So what do I need to buy to start keto? And so what would you recommend for someone starting out with keto or carnivore on like the staples to kind of get started and start to really, begin the lifestyle? Because it's not, it's basically you started and you really never stop it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so the easiest thing to do is to go to my YouTube channel, which is Black Carnivore, and I have a video up there that is what to eat, what to buy, getting started on carnivore. So it's a 6-minute video, and it just gives you a grocery shopping list and just tells you exactly what you need to do and exactly what you need to buy. It's not, it's not any of the science or anything behind that, but just, the logistics of what to do. But, basically, I still consider myself to be on a ketogenic diet. I know that the word keto has been thrown out there, and a lot of times people go to the store and buy a whole bunch of stuff, and they say, I'm on keto. See, I've got my keto spaghetti sauce and my keto, cookies and my keto this and that. But that is not, that's not keto.
Well, I cannot tell you how very disappointed I was when I found out about all these amazing keto items that they're always pushing, even on Instagram. If you follow keto people, they have all of these endorsements for all these products that are keto friendly this, keto friendly bread, keto friendly, wraps, keto friendly, keto friendly, keto friendly. And it's like, wait, no, these don't really work with keto, but they're so good. And they, it feels good when you see that something is low carb, especially like bread and the things that you miss the most when you're doing these kind of things. But I guess explain that there really is no substitute for these things. I know that you've kind of like banged that into my head, and I really don't want to hear it because I really miss my keto lemon cake that I could make like with my eyes closed, but then I would eat the whole like half of the pan in one day, because I really needed that sugar. But I'm over it now, but it did take some time. So just, I guess, kind of go over when you go to the market and you see all of this new branding with everything, say, keto friendly, keto diet, keto this, keto that, how those things are really not keto.
Yeah. So, the approach that I take is a whole foods meat-based diet. So there's no substitute for real food. If it's coming in a bag or a box and it has a nutrition label, then you kind of have to question what it is and what it's actually doing for you. The most nutrient dense food is meat. And if you look at if you want to compare the RDA, the vitamins and mineral content of every piece of meat, and if you want to compare it to vegetables, you will see that it is the most nutrient dense food. So there is no substitute for it. And you need to have animal fat. So this is not a high meat, high protein, get as much red stuff in it. You need the amount of protein that you need, and then you need the rest of your calories coming from animal fat, and that's it. So, and when I say animal fat, again, I mean whole, unprocessed. So the fat that comes with the meat. I know a lot of times when you see these arrays of, these photographs of like beautiful tables with all these arrays of food, and you're like, oh yeah, salmon and, walnuts and, olive oil. Those things are, olive oil is very processed. Any kind of oil that comes in a bottle is very processed. So I want you thinking about eating animal food and eating animal fat. So choosing fatty cuts of meat is your best option. Fatty cuts like ribs, chuck roast, oxtail, pork belly, beef belly, or any animal's belly is where the fat is. And obviously, yeah. And so, when the zombie times come and you have to turn to cannibalism, a stomach.
That's where we need to go.
Yeah. But whatever the fattiest cut of meat is that you can find, that's where you want to start. And then if you feel like you need more fat, you can supplement with butter or with, or you might buy suet or tallow or other stuff like that. These are just fats from different animals have different names. So those are some options. And then from there, I find that if you're looking for optimal health and you have some healing to do, maybe you're a former vegetarian or you have some really bad autoimmune issues, you have a lot of, weight loss and to deal with, and you have a lot of metabolic problems to deal with, then I would say, just stay strict carnivore where you're just having meat and salt and fat and leave it at that. As you get closer to whatever your, health objectives are, or, you want to branch out later on after you've gotten kind of comfortable, you can add things like, low sugar fruits like avocado or cucumber is another low sugar fruit. You might, and then, you can get even more relaxed where you might add at times, dairy and cheese, maybe olives, those sorts of things. So, I don't say that you have to do, strict carnivore every single day unless, you have a health issue you're trying to deal with. But a lot of us do have health issues that we're trying to deal with. Unfortunately, people who are very sick are the norm in our population. And so we really need to be cognizant of that.
Well, one of the things that you just mentioned was salt. And so I've never been a big salt person. And I remember when I first started keto, and I can't remember what my exact complaint was, but I was also, at first I started doing keto, and then I started the intermittent fasting with it. And I remember on one of my fasting days, and I always try to push it to the extreme and only do, I was doing, I think it was 20 and 4, eating 4 hours. And then, when I forget to eat, I just count it as a 24-hour fast and kind of try to push it. But when I remember you telling me at some point that something I was experiencing, you suggested that I eat some salt. And I don't enjoy salt. I've never liked salt. I mean, I cook with it for seasoning and things like that, but I never really add it to my food on top of already cooked food. And so what is the issue that requires you or that forced you to say you should try eating some salt? This will fix whatever problem. I can't even remember what it was, but when is it recommended that you need to have salt?
Well, yeah. So, salt is a normal functional item in our diet. Like we need to have it. And if you don't have enough, death is the ultimate end of that. So you have to have salt. Now, when you're eating a diet that is heavy in carbohydrates cause you to retain water. And so you don't need as much salt to operate as you do when you're on a ketogenic diet. And so when I say a ketogenic diet, that's one where you're burning fat for energy rather than sugar for fuel. And so I consider myself to be on a ketogenic diet. I'm, on maybe the stricter end where I'm not eating vegetables, but I'm on a ketogenic diet. So when you're eating that way, especially in the beginning, when you're just starting, you have a lot of inflammation in your body. And everybody knows, like when your fingers, are swollen, or your ankle is swollen, or if you press on your lower leg and you can see the imprint of your thumb, like all of that is inflammation. And whenever we're talking about inflammation, we are talking about water being somewhere, so that's what it means. And so when you go on a ketogenic diet, one of the things it does is help relieve that inflammation. Well, what happens is you're peeing that out, and that's great, but where goes water, so goes salt. So as you lose all that water, you're also losing a lot of sodium. And if you are not replacing it, you're really going to have a problem. So especially in the beginning of doing a ketogenic diet, I think that people have to they have to consume a lot more salt just to stay, to stay balanced. And then over time, it slows down and you're not losing as much water. And so you don't need, you're not in quite the same situation where you need to have a lot of salt. But in the beginning, you really need to have it. And, and you'll feel so much better when you actually have it. And that is, again, one of the things that I struggle most with people is that, we've been so conditioned to avoid salt that people are, really reluctant. Or when I say you have to have more salt, they say, I added another quarter of a teaspoon. But, that's not what we're talking about. It could be a tablespoon over the course of a day, or, 1.5 tablespoons over the course of a day, which is, that's significantly
a lot of salt for somebody that doesn't eat salt. But
right.
Also, didn't you say also, I think I was lightheaded or I was having headaches, and you were like, just eat some salt. And it was hard for me to eat the salt, but I did notice a difference after I put some salt in my mouth. But I just did not enjoy it. But, right. I enjoyed losing weight though. So whatever,
Well, so as they say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So, it's not ideal I think what I told you to do was to put a pinch right under your tongue, because underneath your tongue, there's a major blood vessel that's pretty close to the surface of the skin. So if you let stuff absorb there. It's like the fastest way into your blood system without like swallowing. If you swallow, then it has to go through your whole digestive system. So it's, you know, within 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes, if you're feeling really bad and you put a chunk of salt there, you should be feeling better. You're not going to feel back to normal, but you're going to feel better. But the better thing to do is to prevent the whole thing in the first place and just get enough salt. So when, you know, and I think this is another reason why I discourage people from fasting in the very beginning of getting started, because the less times you eat, the less times you have to consume salt. And if you are not going to add electrolytes to your water, how are you going to get that salt in? And to add, you know, 1.5 tablespoons to your evening meal, no matter how big that is, I mean, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
So, yeah. So, you know, so that's why it might be better for you to just, you know, have your salt all along the way. And then, you know, buy electrolyte drops. I really, you know, I didn't want to encourage people to buy things in the beginning. It felt like, you know, it's a lot, but I can't get it. Oh, there's no way around it. You really need to buy electrolyte drops. It really makes a difference. You add it to every cup of water and it's going to make a big difference.
So that's my next thing, because my next challenge became, what can I drink? Because I really, really do not enjoy water. And I have to, even before keto, I just am not someone who drinks water. I am embarrassed to admit I have literally gone months without drinking water. So I don't know how I survived, knowing now how important it is. Yeah. But I definitely can go days without water, for sure. No problem. But when I do finally get the water, it does feel like amazing when I'm drinking it. But I also need to have some flavor. So I always end up squeezing a little bit of lemon or something in there so it doesn't just not have any taste. What recommendations besides black coffee, because I can't drink that either, because I just think it's gross. But what can we drink besides water? Because I miss sweet tea. I miss flavor when I'm eating my food. No matter what the food is, I need to have something else, or I used to. I'm good now,
I know,
but
I don't know that we're ever going to have a meeting of the minds on this, Faith. But you know, water is really good. It's really good for you. There isn't anything else that we need to or we're supposed to be drinking. So yeah, sparkling water. I have a soda stream and I make sparkling water and I love that. I like Tazo passion fruit tea. So sometimes I'll put, you know, one of those bags of tea in a cup of water and put it in the fridge and boom, iced tea. And then sometimes I will like a peppermint tea from Celestial Seasonings. I'll take one of those, I'll put it in a cup of water, put it in the fridge, boom, iced tea. But a splash of lemon juice is okay, but nothing sweet.
Yeah. Well, you know that I have gone back and forth with keto since last April. And I did really well at first. You know, I think I lost about 20 pounds really quickly in the first 2 months or so. And then I was like, yes, this is amazing. And then summer came. So from April until like June, I was good to go. I traveled a lot. And so I would even take food with me when I traveled, so I wouldn't be forced to buy something that wasn't on the program, or, you know, end up not eating at all. So I did really, really well until summer. And then summer, I started traveling with Jamel and my son, and going to all these really amazing places, and then just sampling here and there. And so basically I took the summer off. Miraculously, I only gained about 6 pounds. But when I went back on, it was so much harder, I guess, to kind of kickstart the weight loss again. So it took longer to lose that 6 pounds and then keep going. And then, of course, the vacations. And now here we are in Corona, and I'm back. Basically, I've got the 20 plus 5 more back, starting over. So I'm like, a week and a half into new keto for me. And then also having removed the sugar. So I'm officially sugar-free. I think yes, it really is truly amazing. I mean, because you know that I used to go to the dollar store twice a week and get like 5 or 6 boxes of Raisinets and whatever else I wanted, and literally could not watch television unless I had Raisinets. Movie size box of Raisinets every night in my bed.
Yeah.
And so to not do that,
You know, I actually have often wondered why you weren't heavier and sicker.
Okay, so this is why.
So I was like, how does she manage this? Why am I unable to make this work? We're related, like it should work.
Okay, so this is the only reason why. Because I was so busy at work that I was inadvertently intermittently fasting, because I would go all day and not eat. And then I'd come home and I'd eat like chips and Raisinets and maybe like, a sandwich. But none of those things were good. But I could literally go days. I could easily have gone days, maybe a week, without eating any food and only eating candy and chips and Slurpees and milkshakes. And God, I've not thought about the.
I'm sorry, was this a junkie scratch?
This is a junkie scratch. Oh my God. I didn't even notice that. Shut up. But yeah, I really do miss some things, but I'm over it now. I mean, I think that there've been a couple things that have happened with other areas of my life and other realizations that make me understand that this is not the best thing for me. I've been really lucky, like you said, that I haven't had any medical conditions or any problems with my health. And so, starting this sugar-free thing has been a lot easier than I thought it could ever be. Like, my kids absolutely cannot believe that, I'm not at the dollar store 3 times a week, and that my bed is not covered with empty boxes of Raisinets. So, it's possible. But for people that are out there, especially, a lot of people are really successful on keto or carnivore, but they can't really kick the sugar part. So they're having sauces or something like that on their food. What, if any, advice can you give to those people about trying to take it to the next level and getting rid of the sugar?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a struggle everybody has. So, you should not feel alone or like there's something wrong with you. Sugar is a drug. It does have, an actual effect on our brain, and your inability to resist eating it that's not a moral failing. It is an addiction. There's a lot of people that push back against that idea, particularly people who receive their funding from Pepsi Cola and Mars Company and, Domino's Sugar Company or whatever. Those are the people that are invested in denying a sugar addiction. But for those of us who've gotten off of it, it's very clear that that's what's going on. And so when I say a sugar addiction, it doesn't just mean, oh man, I love my sugar. I mean, it means that my brain lights up when I eat sugar in a way that someone who is not addicted to sugar doesn't have. Mm-hmm. And so when your brain lights up like that, you pair that with a bad day, and suddenly your brain's like, oh, this is the solution. Great. And that's an addiction. And then you're ever battling that. So, in my opinion, the only way to really get beyond that addiction is to stop using the substance. So you can't like deal with and fix anything until you are off the substance. Now, for me, I knew that following a carnivore diet was the best approach for me, because I needed to not be having. For me, I don't see a difference between drinking a 6-pack of beer, eating a 2-pound bag of cherries, eating a 2-pound bag of M&Ms, or eating a loaf of bread. All of those are the same substance. They look different. They taste different. We're told they're different, but they're not different. They break down the same way in our bodies, and they are sugar. So the times when I've been drinking more and was smoking cigarettes and drinking more, I didn't eat candy at all. And I was like, oh, I guess I don't have a problem with candy. And yes, I did. But it was only because it was coming in the form of alcohol and nicotine. And nicotine, I didn't say that before, but nicotine causes your body to release blood sugar. And that's why when you smoke a cigarette, you kind of lose your appetite. So it is as if you are eating sugar. You're just not eating sugar. You're inhaling it.
Well, that explains why so many people smoke, because I just really never understood what people get out of smoking. It smells gross. It tastes gross. It makes your clothes and your hair smell. Like, I just could never see a bonus. I did not know that cigarettes, I mean, I knew they were addictive and people were addicted to them, but I couldn't understand why. Like, you know, usually you get addicted to something that feels really, really good or tastes good or smells good or has some effect on you. And I never really understood what that was with cigarettes. So that explains it. You're always teaching me stuff. I can't even believe this.
There you go. There you go. So, you know, I think that you've got to get those items out of your daily, you know, rotation, and it can be harder than you imagine. So for me, I took it to carnivore because I do better without fruit, and I do better, frankly, without vegetables. And so I see my optimal health being, you know, lots of energy, really, you know, just feeling great, perfect digestion, all of those things happen when I follow a strict carnivore diet. Now, some people choose to incorporate more things and, you know, basically follow a keto diet, eating less than 20 grams of carbohydrate a day. You know, you can do that, but you're going to have to see for yourself how you manage with the sugar. And if you feel like you are not, you know, you're still like, you know, white knuckling it. I mean, for a time I was doing an if it fits your macros type of keto, where it's like I would drink a glass of wine and eat chocolate up to, you know, as long as I stayed below 50 grams of carbs a day, I was keto, right? So that's not ideal, you know, and that won't get you, I don't think that will get you optimal health. And it may also really impede your ability to lose weight. And one of the things that you said earlier, Faith, that I thought, you know, was pretty striking was that it's taken you longer to lose the weight this time that you had gained from, you know, getting off keto before. And, well, one, generally, as we get older, it's harder to lose weight.
Okay,
and
we're not going to talk about age at all.
I mean, that's not it. That's not the only thing, but that is a reality. So every time you lose and regain weight is going to be harder because you're older the next time. And then the second thing, though, is that, you know, every time we lose weight, especially if we're not losing it in a really healthy way, we are going to be, we're damaging our metabolism. So, you know, part of what is so great about losing weight on a ketogenic diet is that you start to burn fat for energy rather than sugar. And so we only have a certain amount of calories on our body in the form of sugar, but we have, you know, I mean, theoretically 3 months of fat. I mean, even the slimmest woman can last 3 months on just body fat alone. It's not going to be ideal. It's not going to feel great, but there's enough body fat to keep us alive like that. So it's kind of crazy that we would be subsisting every single day on less than 2,000 calories. That's all that we can carry in our body at a time of sugar. But we have at least 3 months, if not a year's worth of fat, you know, strapped to our back. So what ends up happening, though, is that your body is, you know, ever trying to keep us alive. So if you you know, so if you like reduce the amount of calories that are coming in and your body thinks that something horrific is happening in the world, it's going to slow down your metabolism so that, you know, it's only going to consume the amount of energy that you're providing. And so as you keep doing that, this is what they call the starvation mode. You cut back even more to lose weight, and your body slows down even more. So you're never going to win that game. You're only going to end up slowing your metabolism. And perhaps sometimes that's permanent, that slowing. But when you're on a ketogenic diet and you're burning fat for energy, when you cut back on calories, your body's like, oh, you know, no more of that fat coming in, but I've just got, you know, a whole ton that's still, you know, strapped to my butt, my thighs, my, you know, my
if only we could choose where the fat comes from.
Well, you know, from your lips to God's ears. So, but in any event, you know, it doesn't send the same message of crisis that there is not enough food available. And so your metabolism can stay healthy. And so every time you diet, especially if you're not doing it really, really well, you're, you know, you're damaging your metabolism. And that can also contribute to why it's difficult each and every time you lose weight to re-lose that same weight. And many times when we're losing, what you end up losing is some fat and some muscle. When you're on a ketogenic diet and you're burning fat for energy, not sugar, you're able to spare that muscle, and you don't burn muscle. So you keep all your muscle. And muscle is really important to, you know, keep your metabolism up, to stay healthy, to stay strong, to be able to function and operate. So you never want to lose muscle. But when you go on a diet where you lose some fat and some muscle, you know, you then you start to regain weight. You regain only fat, and you don't regain muscle. So you become fatter still. Even if you're the same weight, your percentage of fat on your body goes higher. So you look jigglier and worse, even if you weigh the same. So that's really bad.
Well, you know, one of the things that really surprised me in the process of becoming sugar-free is to learn that sugar is refined and processed the same way that opioids are. And, you know, that it really is a drug, and you really are or can be addicted to it. Some people can be addicted to it. I definitely was addicted to it. And it's funny because my youngest son used to tease me all the time. Like, he'd be so irritated with all my stops at the dollar store. Like, you know, you have a problem. Maybe you should see somebody about that. And I'd be like, well, shut up and get out of the car. I pay all the bills here. Go get my candy. So it's really nice to know that, you know, I would have never sought out the science of all this. Honestly, I really just come to you and you tell me what's what, and I just do it. But hearing the science behind it really does make a difference in understanding how these things affect your body and your brain, and just accepting the fact, like, I don't want anything to have control over my brain like that. Thank God it wasn't alcohol or, you know, hard drugs like cocaine or heroin, because I feel like it's the same, and it can have as detrimental an effect on your health and your life as anything else. And so I'm so glad that you introduced me to the idea of getting rid of sugar, and that, you know, even when you first told me about it back in, I think it was July, you know, I was just like, there is just no way in hell I'm giving up A, B, C, and D. And then, you know, in my mind, I kind of went on this quest to have everything that I ever thought I might miss once I gave it up.
I got to tell on you, when you sent me that picture of, what was it, a croissant that was, oh no, it was a
funnel cake croissant.
Funnel cake croissant that was covered in like some kind of glaze. It was
so wonderful.
Yeah.
It was embarrassing though, because, you know, that place is here in Charlotte, and every Saturday I try to convince Jamel, like, let's go, and he never wanted to go. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to take this trip out there, because it's like right on the edge of South Carolina, and I'm like, I'm not going to drive that far just for myself. So I have to
edge of South Carolina. My God.
Yeah, Jamel didn't want to go, and then one Saturday I was like, you know what, I'm going. I want it. It's on my timeline all the time. So I just decided to go, and when I went, oh my God, it was so much better than I imagined. It was so good. But now, like, the thought of eating that really makes me sick. I mean, it's just, it's so horrible. It's so bad for you. And so I'm glad that I was able to get all the lessons that I needed to be strong in that area. I see there's some people that are talking about carbs. So I guess, I don't know, I haven't seen any specific questions, but basically, carbs are pretty much in everything. I feel like, just about. So what is there any such thing as a good carb?
No,
no,
I don't think so. I mean, you know, when they talk about in like the biology books, what are the required macronutrients that are essential, that if you don't have, you'll die. Those are protein and fat. There are no essential carbohydrates that are required to be had. Now, people will say that you need sugar to run your brain, that your brain needs a certain amount of glucose. And that is true, but our liver is able to easily make all the glucose that we need. So if you are in a state of if you're in a state of ketosis, where your body is burning fat for energy rather than sugar, your liver is easily able to make it and provide it to all the cells in your body that need it. So there's no problem there. So I would say no, there's no essential carbohydrate. There are vitamins and minerals that we need that are all easily eaten from whole foods like meats and fat. And remember that fat is an organ. So when people talk about needing to eat organ meats like liver and stuff, fat is itself an organ. And there are a lot of vitamins and minerals that are fat soluble. So if you are not eating fat, you are not going to be able to absorb them at all. Vitamin D is one that, people talk about a lot, and vitamin K, and there are others. So definitely, you want to make sure that you're eating good quality fat, or the best quality that you're able to get a hold of. The other thing that I should mention is a lot of times people feel like, eating this way, they have to get grass fed and pastured and regenerative and all the best that they can get. And I would say, when you're starting out, just meat doesn't matter, doesn't matter where it's from or anything like that. Over time, the best quality that you can afford and have access to, you should try to get that. But don't feel compelled to get grass-fed and pastured meats. I do get some of those things sometimes, and other times not. So it really, it depends on what you have access to. But eating this way, you're going to do better than 85% of the population anyway. So, just get started this way, and then you can branch out and see what else you might be interested in doing.
Go ahead. Well,
and I say that I don't think that this is an expensive diet at all. People often complain that it's like, they can't afford it. But I when I stopped buying, like ketchup and cookies and potato chips and all of those things, like my budget just dropped. And when I go to the grocery store and I look at a pound of meat, it's $3.99 a pound, and a pound of broccoli is $3.99 a pound. But I can go a whole day eating a pound of meat and be okay. I cannot eat a pound of broccoli and nothing good comes of that.
Right.
So, yeah. So, it's a matter about deciding where you're going to, put your resources. But, meat is very, very nutrient dense, and you don't need a whole lot of it to be satisfied. So, depending on your size, anywhere from 1 pound to 2 pounds in a day is more than enough, and you will not be hungry. You will be like really satisfied.
Well, one of the questions that's come up that I just saw was basically, what do you do when the weight loss stalls? So you're being very successful on a keto or carnivore diet, and then you get to the point where you've lost 30, 40 pounds or even 50 pounds, and now you're stalled out. You can't get past that marker when you're maybe 15 pounds shy of your goal. What can you do at that point to kind of push it over to the next level?
Well, for one thing, the last 15 pounds are the slowest. So it can take as long to lose, the original 100 as it does to lose that last 15. That's just because as you get closer to your goal weight, that's just going to be a thing. But, I would say you have to look closely at what you're eating. And, are there more carbs slipping in? Are you having more processed foods? The more things that you're eating that are not, purely nutrient, the more it encourages you to eat. If you ever get a plate of a hamburger and you eat the hamburger on its own, you're probably only going to eat as much as you need to be satisfied. But if you add ketchup, you're probably going to have 2. So, there are things that we add that create hyperpalatability. If you have more variety on your plate, you're going to eat more just because, you've got a different thing, and it's just going to encourage you to eat more. So those are things to look at. If you go, when you go strict carnivore, you're cutting out like just about all the things that encourage people to eat. So you kind of eat as much as you need, and then you stop.
Well, before we're coming down to like our last 5 minutes. I really think we could do like a whole nother hour easily, but I won't force you to do that. But I wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to let people know where they can speak to you, and that you're available for private coaching, which is what I recommend. That is what has worked best for me. Not with you, just with you specifically, but with dealing with the whole thing on sugar. having somebody to talk about your specific situation with has really made the difference for me. So I wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to let everyone know that you are available for individual coaching, and where can they reach you?
Yeah, so I'm here on Instagram. I'm at Black Carnivore. And then I'm also on YouTube. That's Black Carnivore. And Tuesdays and Thursdays, we do a live stream from 7 to, whenever. And we talk about like all things to do with, the carnivore diet or keto diet. And, people come, they hang out. There's a lot of lively chat in the chat box. So I encourage you to come. That's a lot of fun. And then I try to put out videos sort of explaining, in detail how to do the diet, some of the challenges and obstacles that people have. And then I do a private coaching. You can find out more about that. You can send me a DM on Instagram, or there's a link there where you can schedule, a session with me. And then I have a Facebook group called, it's a private Facebook group called Black Carnivore. And then we also have 3 times a week, we have Zoom group coaching calls. Because, the reality is this diet, this way of eating is very different. And you do need a lot of support, especially in the beginning, especially when the rest of your family is like still chowing down on pizza and cookies. So, we provide the space for people to get that kind of support. So if you go to if you join the Facebook group, then you can find out more about the Zoom calls. So, we're trying to create a whole universe, a community for Black people who are trying the carnivore diet. Like I said, it is very different. There's also a whole thing, in the Black community about veganism. And I want people to know that if they are seeking optimal health, there is another option besides veganism. I did not find that to be at all helpful for me. And there were many people in our group who tried it as well and did not find it to be helpful. So if you are one of those people who it's just not working for you, there is another way, and it's a whole foods meat-based diet. And so join our community and, get the support that you need.
Well, one thing that I was really surprised by at I think it was one of the lives on a Tuesday night, was a whole conversation about some of the benefits of keto and some of the benefits of the carnivore diet. And I was blown away by how many people in the room were talking about how high their sex drive had gone since they started the carnivore diet. So, I like that conversation. that actually kept me pretty engaged that night, just because you don't hear about things like that from your diet, so to know that so many people have had that kind of like side effect, so to where they are, have an increased libido and it's just more intense and more everything. I think that is something you should leave every conversation with. It's really important, especially during Corona, when you can't even leave the house.
Yeah.
But I just want to thank you for being here. I'm so glad that I had this opportunity. I was really excited to talk to you since we started the shows, and I'm glad that it worked out for this Sunday. I think that this might be a conversation that people want to have on a fairly regular basis. So I won't make you come back every month, but I certainly expect to have you back. Maybe when I have more time under my own belt and have more questions about, what to do moving forward. But thank you so much for being here. And again, everybody, please reach out at Black Carnivore, and then Black Carnivore on YouTube, and then Facebook groups. So it's just so much information. It can be overwhelming, but if you have someone kind of guiding you through it and other people in the room who have experienced what you're experiencing, it makes everything so much easier. So thank you so much for being here, guys. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Of course. And thank you guys all for showing up and being so supportive from the carnivore community. I see so many familiar names in the chat that of course have never been here before, so I know they're only here for you. Which is fine, but thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I hope everyone remembers to register to vote by mail. Remember to exercise your Second Amendment right. I think it's going to become very necessary very soon. And also just stay safe. Johnny Cochran, as a partner with the Johnny Cochran firm, he also always leads meetings with telling everyone that he loved them and to keep the faith. And that is my message to you today. So be safe and keep the faith. Bye-bye.
Bye.